It's been, I don't know, like 10 days since we watched God's Not Dead 1. We just finished watching God's Not Dead 2, so we're going to have a lively discussion of that quality film, I'm sure.
It's all very fresh.
Yeah.
I don't want to get myself in any legal trouble here, but the website I watched it on, I'm pretty sure they stole my social security number.
Yeah, so this is part 2 of our dive into the God's Not Dead franchise. I mean, I don't know. After watching this film, I don't know if I'm up for watching part 3, but it's sort of like a finish the fight situation. Like, we might as well watch the third one, but this one was rough, y'all. I didn't have an enjoyable experience. I don't know about y'all, but
this one was much harder.
This one was a lot less fun. There are a lot less wild things going on, and yet so many more depressing things. We'll try to go through the plot in this one a little bit better than we did last time. Would you guys like to introduce yourselves, by the way? That's a thing podcasters do.
Yeah, I'm the youngest of the Green siblings. I'm Josh, and I hated this movie so much that has replaced all of my other attributes.
Great.
I'm Michael. I'm the older of the two Green siblings, and I feel I was prepared for these films by growing up queer in evangelical culture, because I needed that hardness that you get.
that tough leathery skin from just every day, just guys. Being like, yeah.
Yeah.
Can we talk about how, like, before we get into the plot,
all that homophobia?
Before we dive deep into that chronological plot that this movie attempts to give us, why I realize that these are just the Saw movies of the Christian world.
They really are. They're really like, hey, what if the worst possible people in the world were trying to kill you because you love Jesus?
Like, it's martyr porn.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, no, they're chick tracks, but filmed. By the way, I'm Aaron. I'm the not brother of this one. And I'm a former Catholic, and I also didn't like these films. So, yeah, no, but they really are sort of like torture porn for Christians, because it's like, what if somebody wanted you to say God was dead, and then you had to say, no, he's alive. But if you did say that, they would make you do a series of elaborate debates in front of your freshman year philosophy class.
Every student's nightmare.
Yeah.
And I want to be completely fair, because, like, I don't have very much positive to say about either of these films, but at least this film had, like, a plot that went somewhere.
Yeah, it was coherent.
Yes, because the last film was not. There's no way around it. It would start things and never end them. And this film, like, it limps over the finish line, but God, it gets there.
It does actually get there. It does tie up almost all of its threads. And we'll get to there was one thing that I did think that it was like trying to plant the seeds for, and then it didn't follow up on. And we'll get to that. But let's start with the Amazon description of this film. Quote, when a teacher is asked about Jesus in class, her response lands her in deep trouble and could expel God from the public square forever. And I mean, this is what the movie thinks it's about, which is accurate.
That's my favorite description. That's
so
what it said in the notes of what the movie was about.
Yeah, no, the Amazon, because Amazon owns IMDb, they had some great IMDb notes that when I rented it. One actual important note was that this was filmed in Arizona, and if you look in the courtroom pictures, that flag is the Arizona state flag, or not Arizona. Arkansas? Damn it, completely different state. Arkansas.
Well, yeah, because Mike Huckabee is in this movie.
Yes, Mike Huckabee is in this movie, which is wild. We'll get to that.
And he's not the only politician in there.
He was the only one I recognized, but there is so much stuff happening as usual.
Yeah.
So let's do some set dressing. We open on a scene of Hadley University, which is presumably the university from God's Not Dead 1. We see some baseball players kneeling in prayer at a local high school. And we see Martin.
stand for that flag. Obviously, this is thankfully this movie had a very strong Black Lives Matter message, which I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, yeah, we'll get to that one in movie 3. So, we see Martin Yip from the first movie, which was my first indication that we were going to have a bad time, because my understanding was that there weren't any recurring characters in this film, and there were a ton of them, and I was like, oh fuck, I can't believe they've done this.
I can't believe every Christian knows each other.
Yeah, it's weird how that does happen.
It did actually give me some flashbacks. Like, I know we made fun of them for, like, every character is tangentially related to another one. But, like, that's true with at least my experience with evangelicalism, where it's just, oh, yeah, he's my cousin or my sister's friend's wife.
Yeah, that is always a struggle when you do actually know everyone. So we see Pastor Dave from the first film. He's having kind of a bad day. He stubs his toe. He gets coffee spilled on him, and then he gets locked out of his church. So, we see Pastor Dave's really down on his luck.
The modern day Job, might I add.
Yeah, I mean, he really.
Why is he so clumsy?
He's a dullard.
God hates him.
God does hate him.
God hates him.
God does hate him. He is getting put into the furnace.
Because it ended with the last movie with him finally getting to go to Disney. After God was like, no, you don't go to Disney. And then he watched a man die in front of him.
In the middle of the road, yeah.
And now he stubbed his toe so hard he's limping.
Yeah, he's really
To be fair, they celebrated that man's death. If I were going to hate him too.
Yeah, that's completely fair criticism. We also see our friend, the liberal reporter Amy, who is driving a Prius. This is Prius count number 1 in this film. I want you guys to keep in mind that there are at least 4 mentions of the Toyota Prius in this movie. As far as I can tell, Toyota did not sponsor this film, but it is very difficult to deny that there is strong Toyota Prius representation. So
I was kind of hoping that, like, her arc would have been completed by her getting a Hummer.
That would be so funny. It's a third film. We don't know yet. We'll see.
I think this film should have been called Amy's Not Dead, because we were told that she had terminal cancer.
Amy's not dead. That would at least be honest.
Yeah, well, listen, Amy's arc is actually my favorite in this film, but we're gonna get there. We actually, after we see Amy in, driving her Prius, we cut to the main character of this story. Actually, the second main character of this story, Brooke, who is staring at an empty bed frame in her house, and then her parents are like sort of rushing her to go to school. We learn that she's a junior at the local high school, and
which is the important one.
Yes, this is the important one.
That's important year.
Yeah, it's a high school. Her parents are like unsympathetic about her. They're like, hey, it's been 6 months, Brooke. You really need to get over this. And my first thought was like, oh, is this like an ex-boyfriend that like lived with them? I guess that's weird. So I was like, they're being really weird about this, but it's pretty clear immediately the parents are not the good guys. They're talking about some sort of lawyer thing, and then they're like, oh, hey, you can just walk to school. You guys, we're gonna let you and your friend walk to school, and then we're gonna drive off in our BMW and huge Lexus SUV. And before they get off, the mom stops and she pulls over the SUV and like says to Brooke and her friend, like, hey, Brooke, you need to get focused, otherwise you won't be accepted to Stanford and you'll have to go to somewhere state. As a graduate of Indiana State University, I resent that comment, so I'm already immediately on Brooke's side.
I don't even have the privilege of going to somewhere state. I'm going to Virginia's 8th best college.
Yeah, it's a struggle. Really. I mean,
they're really digging in deep for us non-1%ers.
Yeah, really. I mean, Brooke's mom and dad are the exact liberal coastal elites that I expect that you and Mike are, Josh.
Yep, that's us. That's where we were raised.
Yep. So that sets up Brooke. She's the first important character. Second, so now we cut to this old man and his presumed granddaughter, played by Melissa Joan Hart, who is named Grace, and she's giving him breakfast in bed. Grandpa immediately is like, hey, why aren't you having breakfast with a real man? And she's like, Grandpa, be cool for a second. I have to do some teacher stuff later, but could you just like calm down and let me give you this oatmeal?
Without bacon.
No bacon, because this is the thread I was talking about earlier. He's like, your cholesterol tests were bad, Grandpa. I'm not going to let you take me out for bacon and eggs. And my assumption was like, oh, Grandpa's going to fucking die. Grandpa's going to have a heart attack later on in this film. That never happens. He's completely healthy throughout
these movies. Are so weirdly connected. I thought, and I'm not making this up, I thought he was going to get it with old lady from last movie. I thought somehow those two were going to get together.
The dementia woman. Oh my goodness, that's incredible.
I thought he would be like, my ex-girlfriend from 1942.
That would be so tight.
They end up in the same like retirement home.
But like she doesn't remember what year it is, so she's like, Jack, you got so old.
That would be so good. So then we follow Grace to her teaching job at Martin Luther King Jr. High School. We see her talking in the teacher's lounge with their colleagues, including a Miss Rizzo, who's like, I'm going to retire in a month. I'm so happy. I hate kids. And all the other teachers are like, yeah, kids suck. And then Grace is a narc because she's like, I think challenging students can be a blessing. And I like, oh, Grace, could you just be cool for a second? This is why everybody turns on you in this movie, is because you don't just like be cool and like complain about your job like everyone else does.
She has no chill. None.
She's just this point will come up a little bit later, but I have to mention it because it's going to bug me. I love that she teaches AP history.
Yeah, no, me too. I was like, wait, this is an AP history course, huh?
What kind of history, though?
Just history. Not European, not US, just history.
They could have even done like world history.
They could have done, like the most generic possible. It's AP history.
No, just history.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad that you pointed that out, Josh, as our resident history expert.
I should say that I am going to school to be a history teacher, and she's not a good teacher.
Yeah,
I'll get to that later.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that part. Cut back to Pastor Dave. He's at the church. He finally got in somehow. He's looking through his mail. He notices he got a jury summons, so he's like, oh man, I have to go to jury duty. And Reverend Jude walks through the door, and Pastor Dave and I both have the same reaction, which is, why are you here?
Yes.
I thought, and I'm not kidding, I really thought it was, we still have not made it to Disney.
He's like, yeah, man, we haven't gone to Disney. It's been 2 years, and I've just been stuck here. But no, Reverend Jude is actually finishing his doctorate at Hadley University, so he's going to be hanging out for a while. So that's an exciting and unnecessary, additional character.
And he was given permission to finish his doctorate. Like, he specifically said that, which I find interesting. Who gave you permission?
Yeah.
You guys, you guys are gonna have to explain to me how Baptist hierarchies work, because like that is a thing, at least in the Catholic Church. Like you have to get permission from your bishop to like go teach somewhere or like be stationed in an area. So it makes me. He doesn't, we don't actually get their actual denomination, but it seems like Jude is in some sort of more hierarchical church, because like that's something a bishop would do. Be like, okay, hey. I mean, he's not an ordained priest. He doesn't wear a collar or anything. But like that tracks, at least for me. That didn't, which is interesting because you guys were like, hey, that's super weird, and I was like, oh, that's totally normal. So I love that.
Yeah, at least for like we grew up. You kind of went to whatever church you wanted to, and then they judged you relentlessly after you left your church.
It's all chaos. Like you wake up one day, God called you to preach. You're preaching like. And anyone who says no is standing in the way of God. Like, it's real. Like, there's a lot of trust.
And if you preach at a different church, you might have converted to the wrong religion, and you're no longer allowed in our church ever again.
Oh, I love that.
It's so much fun.
This is what you get for breaking off from the one true faith, you heathens.
Listen, you can't still be mad. It's been 600 years, my dude.
I don't know if you guys have ever met religious people, but they can hold grudges forever. So
It's true.
So back to Grace. She is doing her cool AP history class. They're playing a game about the Declaration of Independence, which is really good. I mean, I don't know. I actually did play occasionally. I would play like Jeopardy in class in high school, and that was tight.
Yeah.
I feel like that was a softball answer though. That was a real easy one, Grace.
It was such a this is gonna come up later. Wink, wink. And
Yeah.
that's, I think, what bugged me more about the slap the stapler game they were playing. It just was so clearly, oh, I can't wait to see how they rope this one in later.
Yeah, exactly. Because she's like, all right, and then next week we're gonna talk about individual rights, and she just like barrels the camera for 50 seconds, like individual rights. Remember that.
Even though they talk about civil rights afterwards.
Yeah, exactly, and they don't. They talk about Martin Luther King and Gandhi. And that's the flashpoint.
The two speakers white people like to talk about.
That's right. So she does notice that Brooke is not participating in her bad game, and she's like, "Hey, Brooke, do you wanna talk about why you're sad?" And Brooke's like, "No, I don't want to talk about it." So and it's like, okay, sure, whatever. But we see that, Grace is a teacher who's empathetic and attuned to her students' needs, which will come back in a little bit. We switch to Amy, who is on the phone because she was actually driving to her doctor's appointment. She is on the phone with the Newsboys lead singer. Is his name Michael? I feel like his name's Michael or David or something. But she's like, Newsboys lead singer.
It's something biblical.
Yeah, of course it is. But he's like, she's on a first name basis with this lead singer, and she's like, "Hey, Newsboys lead singer, you guys faith healed my cancer." And he's like, "Wow, that's so great."
He's kind of like, told you so. Like, do the Newsboys have magical powers? Like, is that an in-universe thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's canon. They faith healed her in the last movie.
Why do they not help out the pastor dude then?
Yeah, they could have just like rushed fucking Kevin Sorbo over them and like, "Hey, dude, his lungs are filled with blood. Quick, Newsboys."
They like close their eyes and pray, and he like stands up.
He does a little dance, and he's like,
a
"I couldn't walk like
cross-shaped
this."
scar on his chest. That'd be tight.
We're gonna get too busy talking about movies that would be much better than this movie,
including the first movie in this franchise. Okay, smash cut to Brooke. Immediately, it's back to Brooke and Grace. So this comes up, and you have to like, I had to like go back and check, but like I thought this was like, I don't know, like in school still, but no, this is in a cafe off campus apparently. Brooke tracks her teacher down while she's grading some papers off campus, and she's like, "Hey, can I talk to you about my feelings?" Like, no, I'm sorry,
no,
I don't get paid to do therapy. Like, please, Brooke.
Well, and how inappropriate could this be?
It's so bad. It's really bad.
Like, it was so cringy too, because like every time I've ever seen a teacher outside of the classroom, it's neither of us want to be here right now.
Yep, it's
like,
hyper uncomfortable.
And we don't know, and I'm gonna keep it a secret from the audience until we're at the point in the movie where it comes out. We don't know what happens to her brother. They don't talk about what happens to her brother.
Nope, it's not set up for a while.
Are your parents, like, I'm sure they're still caring about it. Caring about what?
Yeah, caring about what? And they're like, "Oh, I don't know. We'll see."
The Thing, wink,
but
wink.
Yeah, The Thing. Anyway, Grace asks if Brooke or her brother believed there's something more, and Brooke is like, "Oh, I don't know." But then she's like, "Hey, Mrs. Wesley, Grace, why does nothing ever get you down?" And Grace just says Jesus, and Brooke's like, "That makes sense. That makes total sense to me."
That's a really weird nickname for Xanax.
I would not that Jesus.
I would absolutely adored it if she just went, "Oh, coffee. It's 1,000% coffee." and Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior.
So we go to Grace, who is worried about Brooke. She's talking with her grandpa at the dinner table, and Grandpa says, "Well, that's the thing about atheism. It doesn't take away the pain. It just takes away the hope." I mean, I was mad initially, and I was like, "Well, Grandpa, as somebody who identifies as an atheist, you're not 100% wrong. I'm a much more anxious person now that I don't believe in a higher power. But it is a shitty thing to say.
Yeah. Can we talk about how all old people in this universe, except for Dementia Grandma, are sociopaths?
Even Dementia Grandma at the end is a sociopath. She like looks at her son and says like, "The devil is coming for you. Anyway, I don't know who you are."
True.
I want to go back and watch that scene, but like edit her eyes to just be all black. Because like if it turned out that she was secretly possessed by a demon for that one paragraph that she did, it would make so much sense.
That would be tight.
If she was just like, "I have your soul."
Yeah. And then
also doesn't Grandpa say like, yes, the one right that we no longer have as people, the right to choose God.
Yeah, I know. The most basic human right of all is the right to know Jesus, and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, it's so true." I hate that right is getting totally crushed by Barack Hussein Obama, because this movie did come out in 2016.
Can I say this is like actually where the movie, to me at least, took like a dark turn?
Oh yeah,
because
no, you're right.
This is like what the psychology of oppression is, and like the victim complex is. They can oppress as many other groups as they want under the guise of this is the most basic human right. Not your right to marry, not your right to keep a job, not your right to have a house, food, healthcare, anything like that. It is the right to know Jesus, and they can use that as a tool for oppression. And I feel like this is when I started going, oh, that's what this movie's going to be about.
Mm-hmm. Yep. This is the turn it takes where it's like, oh no, this is not a fun film anymore. It stops
being funny and campy and starts being like, oh.
Yep. Not to be this depressing history major, but I'm taking a course on slavery in the United States, and that exact metaphor was used time and time again of, well, we're just introducing them to Jesus. So it's a net positive.
Oh, yeah. There's a whole colonialist rabbit hole we could go down, but we can't. We are 20 minutes into this recording.
Yeah.
We have to keep going. Okay. Salvation Army shows up to take presumably dead brother's stuff. We don't actually know that. But we have to assume at this point. Mom makes Brooke watch them load it up while she goes to do business things, which is very funny.
Don't forget about the garbage.
Yeah, that's true. And the Salvation Army woman, after she packs all the stuff up, is like, "Oh, hey, we found this Bible among your brother's things. We thought you'd want to have it." And the two things I thought were like, okay, we've established this family is full of atheists. So why did they call the Salvation Army, which is notorious for its terrible treatment of queer youth, to pick up their stuff? Bad call. I mean, I guess these parents are hyper detached, so we already know that. They probably just don't care. And this woman's a plant. I assume that every time the Salvation Army comes to somewhere, they're like, "Hey, we found this among your you said your kid moved out to college? Yeah. We found this Bible among their stuff. Do you want it?"
I was thinking the same exact thing, where they have like Bibles filled with verses highlighted.
Yeah, it's like, oh, it's so wild. Crazy. Anyway, do you want this?
Jesus.
Okay. Here's the part where the movie gets interesting. Well, relatively. So Grace is teaching.
Things happen.
Yeah. Grace is teaching about peaceful nonviolence under Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. And she's like, yeah, they both did these big movements where they didn't want to do violence to get their civil rights or whatever. And Brooke then asks maybe the most leading question ever, which is like, is that what Jesus meant when he said to love our enemies? And Grace is like, oh, wow, that's pretty forward, but yeah. And then she quotes Matthew about how you should, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. And it's honestly, it's a little much that she did quote the whole scripture, but this is not something I would lose my shit over. Even if it happened in like a public school, I'd be like, oh, okay. I mean, that kid did ask a weird direct question.
Right.
And the teacher did use her platform to directly quote her book, but I'm not going to start a lawsuit over it.
And do you know how easy it would have been for the teacher to just like pivot this, right? And like start talking about how like pretty much every religion known to man has like peaceful protest and non-violence and like has that message in there. It would have been so easy for her to just be like, yeah, you can be inspired by your faith to do these things, and then let's move on and keep talking about the subject.
Yeah, no.
Or even just going into like specifics, but like, oh, the Jewish Talmud or the Quran. But I think if someone said the word Quran in this movie, it would explode.
Spontaneous combustion.
Yeah, it's pretty good. So that is the most important part in the movie. That sets the rest of the film into motion. But now we have to cut to Martin, the Chinese foreign exchange student, talking to Pastor Dave. And he references Josh Wheaton, our protagonist from movie 1. He's like, Josh told me I should come talk to you. I have 147 questions. And the fact that they play that as a joke really bummed me out. It's like, you know how those Asians are. They're always so good at school and asking questions. That's why this Asian man has so many questions. And Pastor Dave is just like, oh boy, time, here we go again. So I hated that.
I hated that, and I don't understand why they brought him into this film. What role does he truly serve other than one scene later on that could have been anyone else?
Are you talking about Martin or Pastor Dave?
Martin.
Yes.
I mean, I hate Pastor Dave. I don't think that he should be in the film either, but at least he has, like...
You could literally pull every Pastor Dave scene out, and the movie is the exact same.
You know, guys, I'm glad you brought this up, because the reason why Pastor Dave is in this film is because he is the co-founder of PureFlix. Yeah.
We love nepotism.
I just realized something.
He's just like, I want to be an actor.
He's the diner dude. He is the diner guy who was in the first movie, who was the car rental guy. He just wants to be an actor, and he's doing all of this.
Oh no! Oh no!
Oh my god! This is all a creative setup.
Oh my god!
In fairness,
that car salesman is still the best character in these films, so I understand why he'd want to be like him.
He's the Stan Lee.
Yeah. So during that scene where Grace was quoting about Jesus, we see a student texting on their phone, presumably, texting the principal to be like, hey, there's some Jesus in this room. I need you to help me. But like, we immediately cut to the principal, Mrs. Kinney and Grace. Mrs. Kinney is taking her in to meet with the school's lawyer after school because the word got around that she said the word Jesus too loud. And also that teacher from the beginning, Mrs. Rizzo, is her union appointed rep. So she's going to help defend them. And they're talking about what Grace did was bad. And they're like, hey, Grace, did you actually talk about Jesus in the classroom? And Grace is like, yeah. And Miss Rizzo says, what were you thinking? And I think the reason she does that is because she's from a union, which we all know is also bad.
I was going to say, I'm surprised they managed to get anti-union into this movie.
Well, here's the thing, because her good guy lawyer is also from a union, which is wild. It's such a strange pivot.
Yeah.
It's so strange.
Union bad most of the time.
Most of the time.
This film does have, like, liberal bingo, where, like, you've got union, ACLU, atheist. I actually made a note, Ivy school. And, like, you get your free space. So there's your bingo.
Oh my god. Yeah, no, it is really just the worst smorgasbord of stereotypes, and we love it. We love that for us. It should be noted that Principal Kinney is a mean black lady, which does come up not explicitly but implicitly in the film. And we see that she's calling the coach about the baseball team, and she's like, no more prayers, not in the parking lot, not outside. I don't care if it's a tradition, just no more prayers. And then Brooke is like, hey, principal, what's up? And Principal Kinney is like, you can't talk to Miss Wesley anymore. She's under disciplinary review. You're not at fault, but, don't talk to her. And Brooke is like, when did it become a crime to discuss what you believe? And it's like, oh, Brooke. I
also want to point out, the principal was like, no moments of silence.
Oh yeah, no moments of silence, which, like, there are lawsuits that, like, explicitly gave people the right to have moments of silence, so
yeah,
we love that.
Because, like, the prayer one, I was like, oh, okay, and then it was moment of silence. I'm like, all right, that's about as non-confrontational of a moment you can have in a school.
I mean, yeah, exactly. Okay, so Grace is getting ready to, meet with her union-appointed attorney at this coffee shop. She meets him. His name is Tom Endler, and the first thing I noticed was that he is hot, which made me think. I was like, wait, why are they making the bad guy hot? That doesn't make sense, and it's because he's actually the good guy. But
Yes.
I'm glad that turned out to be my hunch on that turned out to be accurate. He
These
says
movies kind of have the Barbie movie rules, where it's everyone pretty is good and everyone ugly is bad.
Yes.
That's extremely accurate.
It's just coming from my knowledge of Barbie movies.
When I was first introduced to this guy, the first thing I said is the gardener from Desperate Housewives, and then the second thing I said was, "Oh, they're gonna fuck, right?"
I mean, they do share a passionate hug at the end, which is basically pornography.
Yeah.
That is Christian third base.
Yep.
Fourth base is pregnancy, actually.
Yeah. So he says a lot of stuff about how she's going to be tried criminally, probably, and if she doesn't like him because he's a scruffy looking dude, she can pay for her own lawyer. But he says that even though he's not a Christian, he doesn't like to lose, and he's going to do his best for her. And she's like, well, I guess I'll make the best of it. So we cut back to Pastor Dave talking to Pastor Jude about Martin and how that darn Asian had so many questions it exhausted him. And that's the end of the scene.
Well,
there's
he also
so many
like, why aren't you doing this instead of me?
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah. We love that for Pastor. Pastor Dave is like incredibly unlikable, which is so funny. I don't know why he made himself like the least good character in this film.
He's traumatized. He wants the man to die.
Yeah. There's so many micro scenes in this film. It's wild. Like in this next one, there's just a scene of Melissa Joan Hart, praying for assistance from God, reading her Bible, and I mean, I can see why you include that in a Christian film. Like, she's a devout person, she's praying, but I feel like they could have accomplished this in a different way, and I just don't know why they had this 30-second scene in there. But we cut from that to the school board meeting with we have Grace and her hot lawyer Tom on one side, and the union, the school board and their lawyer and the principal on the other side. And the school board says, like, hey, Grace, if you don't apologize, you'll lose your job. But we can come to an agreement. We can just put a disciplinary note in your file. You can write an apology for this incident and promise not to talk about Jesus in the future. And Tom is like, okay, that seems pretty reasonable. And Grace is like, no, it's not reasonable, because if I don't have the right to talk about Jesus in my classroom, I'm being oppressed. And Tom is like, hey, please don't do this.
Grace is a Karen.
Oh yeah, she's extreme Karen. We'll get to the way they portray Christians as being persecuted in public office later.
God.
But Tom is like, yes. Why aren't you doing this? And she's like, I would rather stand with God and be judged by the world than stand by the world and be judged by God. And I am not going to be afraid to say the name Jesus, which, I mean, I guess isn't really what this is about, but it is, because that's just the way the movie frames it. But my favorite part, maybe in this whole film, is where the school lawyer is like, hey, if this becomes a protracted lawsuit, we can just let the ACLU sue Grace, and it won't be the school board's problem. And then the principal and the school board head are like, what are you talking about? And the school lawyer is like, here's the thing. The ACLU sought us out. They're interested in this case because they, quote, want her, and they've been dreaming for a case like this. And I guess there is just somebody at the ACLU who is like just has their ear to the floor in local high schools, just like, I need to find a controversy so I can fucking persecute some Christians, otherwise I can't get a boner. Like, it's so incredible that there is they make it seem like the ACLU is hunting for these things, and I love that.
I also like the portrayal of the ACLU as old white men.
Yeah, because notoriously the ACLU is full of those sort of people and not a diverse coalition, but cool.
Yeah, it's all old white liberals from Ivy Leagues.
Yeah, exactly, precisely. let's see.
Driving Priuses.
Yeah, no. We actually, yeah, I mean, the school board does go ahead and suspend Grace without pay until a court can review the case, which isn't really how courts or job hiring works, especially in Arkansas work.
No.
But that doesn't matter.
That bugged me so much. Like, I'm sorry, but no principal would just be like, we'll see what the court decides.
Yeah, we're not going to fire you. We're going to take this to court for no reason. We want this to be a longer and more expensive process.
Every school system I know, and this might not look great for me in the future, would just be like, hey, what if you just quit?
Yeah,
exactly. They would ask you to resign because that's the best way to avoid an incident for everyone.
And they'll write you a neutral recommendation for another school, and then it happens again in 20 years. But we don't. Yeah. It's not their problem.
Exactly. It's not their fault at all. But speaking of
the systems, I'm chill. Please hire me. I'm not going to do that ever.
Don't worry, Josh. This podcast is not being widely syndicated.
No.
We do cut to a scary man stepping out of a black car who says it'll be good for Brooke's college apps if she's involved in a court case about the separation of church and state, which is, I don't know if that's, I've never applied to an Ivy League school, but I don't think that's how I don't think they're like, oh, were you named as there's not like an application box on your application that's like, hey, which First Amendment rights were you involved in a massive legal lawsuit about? Check here.
I'm just imagining her parents want her to write her admission essay about it. Like,
yeah, I mean,
my parents forced me to do this thing.
I mean I mean, honestly, Michael, that is more likely what in real life would happen. Like, if you wanted to brag about being involved in a case like that, you would just do that as your college app application. You would drop it in there in an essay or in an interview. Like, but it's not like if you just say your straight up application, like they're gonna be like, oh, I've heard of this woman. She's
hero,
fabled Arkansas, the hero, the defeater of Christ and all his minions. Like,
I feel like it'd be a more interesting essay if she wrote like, hey, no one's talking about what happened to my brother. No one will say any of the words that happened to my brother.
I mean, honestly, I would be, if I was a college admissions person and then like halfway through the essay about separation of church and state, it turned into like, anyway, my parents suck and my brother's dead. Like, I'd be kind of hooked. That's some good, like, that's a good drama.
Yeah. It's a twist.
It's a good twist, yeah. So ACLU man is talking to Brooke's parents. They're like all on board. They're like, oh yeah, like we want to talk about this court case. And then his aide is like, and also think of the financial opportunities from suing a public high school. And I mean, like for people like us, like if we were involved in a case in a public high school, I'm sure we could get a decent amount of money out of it. But it seems like, you know, these people are pretty rich and they're willing to pay to send her daughter to college. Like, I don't think that's going to be a significant amount of money for them.
Famously well-funded Florida schools or Arkansas schools.
Exactly. Precisely. But he does utter the line, we're going to prove once and for all that God is dead. It's just like, this movie's so fucking corny. Like, y'all.
They wrote the movie around the title.
I mean, honestly.
Well, and at least in the first film, like, there's like some setting in philosophy where like you can use that title, but it felt like they got to the end of filming and went, fuck, we don't have a reason for them to chant God's not dead. So we need to like go back and reshoot these scenes.
Which is
put this line in.
One private scene between the lawyer and the parents.
We just need to get the title.
That's why it's only them. It's in
really
post-production, guys. I'm telling you.
I mean, I'm sure you're right, because then there's like another scene where Brooke is like sort of peeking out of view, and she's like, oh, and then she doesn't say anything, and then she just leaves.
No.
And ACLU man's like, oh, she's a minor, so she has no rights according to the court. We're not going to call her as a witness, which seems wild, but okay. Anyway, we cut to Tom and Grace reviewing the charges. The school wants to revoke her teaching certificate as well as fire her, plus make her pay for attorney's fees, which is not what would happen at all. Quote, they want to make an example of you. To them, your beliefs are like a disease whose time has come and gone. Like, all right, Tom, you're making a lot of assumptions there, big boy. And then she's like, "What do we do?" And Tom looks at her with his great facial hair and his baby blue eyes. I don't know what color his eyes are. And he says, "We win." And you know what? I respect. That's some anime bullshit, and I'm into it.
Tom's not very smart, you guys.
Tom's a fucking dumb. Yeah, we'll get to that when we get to his legal defense, because his defense sucks.
Bad lawyer.
He's a shitty lawyer. We do get a Brooke,
Tom is a fuckboy.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. We get to a scene outside the school where Brooke is protesting, and she has duct tape over her mouth, which is the most eye-rolly, like, dramatic thing. So that sucks. We get Reverend Jude and Pastor Dave. They have a quick scene where Pastor Dave is like watching his online jury orientation, and Jude is like, "Why aren't you watching this? Because it's muted." And he's like reading a Bible or whatever. And Dave is like, "Matthew 22:14, baby. Many are called, but few are chosen." And then he does some extremely bad math. And he's like, "Well, you have a better chance of being struck by lightning than being called for a jury." And the stat he gives is like 300 people, 12 out of 300 people are going to be selected, which means that Dave thinks that there is a 4% chance in your life you'll be hit by lightning.
So I want to make the case for this, because
Please.
It's clear this movie happens in a different universe, right? Because like the Newsboys have a residency in this town. They have healing properties, and some man can just be hit by a car and it's not on the news. He died. The pastor went and left. They went and celebrated. So maybe in this universe, 4% of people are struck by lightning.
I love this. I love this idea of the GND cinematic universe where like physics are different and like your life is so fragile. Like
I'm gonna
cancer for being too liberal. And you can,
Yeah.
I'm going to push back on that slightly, Michael. I have a different theory. I think that God hates Pastor Dave so much that he has been struck by lightning like 18,000 times. Therefore, the human population likeliness is now 4%. Because
I
God
love
just
that.
hates that man.
Yeah, that's
He's
true.
not a Pastor Dave fan.
I mean, none of us are really.
That makes two of us.
Yeah. Okay, now we go to the jury selection scene, where they're like picking out jurors, and I don't know enough about law, but it seems like you shouldn't really be able to say like, "Oh, that person likes Pretty Little Liars. I don't want them on the jury." I thought it was a good joke.
It seemed like an unnecessary dig. I'm like, oh, okay.
Well,
I mean,
fuck you,
like,
what's
I
your
get
favorite
it. Like,
show?
it's a liar. It's liars, so it's a joke, and I thought it was fine.
Yeah.
But then they cut to an old man who likes Duck Dynasty, and they're like, "Nope." And it's like, yes, that bastion of theological thinking, Duck Dynasty.
Well, they put him right next to like, oh, that guy's a Marine. Fuck
Oh
him,
yeah,
am I right?
because then Marine comes up, and they're like, "What part of God, country, and core don't you want on our jury?" And they kick the Marine out.
Yeah.
And then at this point, there is a literal storm brewing over the courthouse. And the top left corner, it is such cornball bullshit, and it's like, oh man. And then that's when Pastor Dave.
We're about to test that 4% theory.
Yeah, I mean honestly, because that's what he says. He's like, I have a better chance of being struck by lightning, but here we are.
That was God just trying to kill him.
I mean, yeah, God was like, oh, maybe it's his time. Maybe he's like carrying a golf club or something.
Me, damn it, come on.
I should be more powerful than this. Cut to Martin in a church. He's got more questions for Pastor Dave. And they're talking about the Beatitudes, and Martin's like, they're like almost impossible to follow. And then Pastor Dave, because Martin is an Asian, uses a science metaphor to explain faith to him, because Asians only understand science. And he's like, oh, now I get it. And there is a Beatitudes montage where Dave is talking about the Beatitudes. He's like, blessed are those who are poor, blessed are those who are hungry. And Grace is walking into court, and it's just like this big dramatic thing. It's like, oh, please don't do this. It really sucks. It's just part of the terrible ideology of this film.
I think like one annoying part that's really hard to push through without watching these is just how exhausted it is to get beaten over the head with all of the like, just it's so heavy-handed.
Yeah, I mean, there's no subtlety at all. It's literally
Well,
like,
not only is it heavy-handed, it's also like narratively very loose.
Oh.
Like you start thinking like we're moving in a direction, right? And you're like, all right, I get what you're saying. Let's push forward. But then they feel the need to like harp on that again in a different way with a character we haven't seen for like 45 minutes.
yep.
And these movies are long. Like, these are long.
This was a
movies.
2-hour movie. It was
2 hours
plus post-credit scene. So like,
well, they had to set up the Bible Man crossover.
Yeah, exactly.
God, I hate these movies.
They're really bad. So Marlene, who is Brooke's friend, is apparently related to Amy. She calls her Aunt Amy, and she asks that for Amy to somehow help Brooke, which is wild because like in the previous film, Amy was like the leader of a hyper liberal blog, so it seems like a wild thing to ask her to take up, but whatever. And Amy's like, you know what? I'll meet with her. I'll talk to Brooke and we'll see if we can work something out. So we go to the courtroom, and the first thing, so we see ACLU man talk about separation of church and state, and then hot lawyer Tom brings up a copy of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, which he keeps in his briefcase because he's a lawyer, and says that separation of church and state is not actually in the Constitution. You won't find those words there. And that is, I don't know how often you guys argued politics at your high schools, but that argument came up often in my high school, where it's like, well, technically this never actually is in the Constitution, which means it doesn't matter at all, which is cool.
It frustrated me because it's much like Baby's first philosophy class last movie. This was Baby's first lawyer.
Yeah.
Because it was just so, like, it doesn't say that. You know what else it doesn't say? A lot of things. We just got to, you can go from step A to step B.
Yeah, we're sort of building on a general theme here, guys. Like, play along. I guess
Thomas Jefferson said it. It must be true.
That's
true. I'm going to ignore all of the very, very racist things that he said.
Yeah, great. Brooke does an interview with Amy, and Amy is going to try to get Brooke's story out there. It's not a very interesting scene. We cut back to the court. Brooke's dad is upset about Grace's alleged religious teachings, and you know, they're talking about how offended he is. We get Miss Rizzo, who gets called back, and she's like, everyone knows Grace is a Christian. She wouldn't chew a stick of gum without praying first. And my thought is like, where in Arkansas are you finding these like rabid militant atheists? Like fucking Richard Dawkins has set up a school out there and is like training them to infiltrate like churches and shit. Like, I can't. It is so wild that she would like just make up this blatant lie, and then Tom calls her on it, and then she's like, well, I was just lying. And then this really
on the stand.
Yeah, I was just perjuring myself. And then this juror sneezes. Pastor Dave says, God bless you. And Tom is like, you should be careful or you'll end up on trial. And everyone laughs because it was a really funny joke. The judge, Judge Stennis, who is also a black person, is not amused. And it's just the way the casting of these films is so strange because it is actually genuinely more diverse than a lot of films that I've seen as far as like background characters, and even, you know, their side characters. There are at least 2 people of color. It's so weird that they have like both an Asian man and a black man as secondary characters, and yet like the way that they portray like people of color's rights and issues is so offensive and disgusting.
And they kind of suffer from the same thing like a lot of mainstream TV and film does, but they tend to do it more with women versus this film tends to do it more with minority characters, where they serve to propel a white man's story.
Exactly. They're the motivation.
Yeah. They don't get their own agency. And even like to some extent, Grace feels like she can't stand on her own. Like, I asked the question about 2/3 of the way through this movie. I made the note, does this pass the Bechdel test if they are both talking, if Brooke and Grace are talking about God?
That's the thing. God's a man, Michael, so no.
Ariana told me God's a woman, so.
I really doubt we have any Ariana Grande listeners in this movie. It is newsboys for life.
We don't know. Maybe in the third movie they'll crash an Ariana Grande concert.
Oh, I hope so.
Please.
That's the only thing that would save this.
It would be really good.
This might be getting ahead of myself. Are we at the point where the principal talks? Because I have opinions about that one.
We are almost there. There's just a brief scene where Amy is talking, or Brooke is watching Apex News about how Christians are brainwashing students, and they're like, "We're going to send some atheists to protest Grace." Got her. But no. Josh, what you're saying, it happens right now. The ACLU lawyer calls Principal Kinney to the stand. And talks about how that she doesn't, that the school policy to not have them talk about religion. And then do you want to summarize what happens?
I would love to summarize what happens, because it is so unbelievable. Like I thought that this was so heavy-handed and racially charged, weirdly enough, because they're like, hey, black woman, you know who was cool and Christian? Martin Luther King Jr. And I noticed you didn't call him Reverend in your school. And she's like, no, we only focus on the civil rights stuff he did. And he was like, well, you know who would disagree with you? Martin Luther King Jr. And then quoted some stuff he said about scripture. And it's just so racist.
Especially because it is the letter from the Birmingham jail, which is maybe his most famous text besides I Have a Dream. And it's like so astonishing to think that a black woman in education would not have read that. And then she's like, oh no, I don't actually know exactly about that. It's like, come the fuck on, please.
Let this white man explain civil rights movement to you.
Exactly.
And if we're going to talk about keeping Dr. King's, thoughts coherent and consistent, are we going to talk about what he said about capitalism too? Like, are we going to have that conversation?
Nope.
Something
Remember,
tells
Michael,
me no.
Yeah, no. If the fact that Martin Luther King Jr. Day is a thing is any testament, I don't think we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, no.
You can get a discount on a car, exactly what he wanted. It's just also very infuriating that it takes this very complicated relationship that Dr. King had with religion, especially when it comes to other Southern ministers. Like, there are multiple accounts in which he's like, you guys are dropping the ball here, and I'm going to highlight how and why. And then to twist that to be like, and Christianity has always been on the side of the martyrs and those that are being persecuted. Mm-hmm. It's just so... It's martyr porn.
Yeah.
At some point in the movie, they do ask Grace if she wants to be a martyr. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Because this is every Christian's dream.
Yes, exactly.
Like, I just want some gross old atheist to come up here and tell me my views are wrong, and then I'll tell them how they're actually the racist ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Exactly. And that... It's great. And what also owns is that, before he lets Principal Kinney off the stand, he's like, one more question. So at the staff memo you started at the beginning of the year, it stressed diversity and tolerance. But why is Christianity the only religion exempt from that tolerance? And it's just, I can't believe they pulled so much for the tolerant left in this film. But they really hit that nail on the head.
Well, and then the other lawyer comes up and brings up a point that is actually kind of messed up, where he's like, well, is it true that this teacher will accept donations for her church during school hours? And they're like, yeah.
Yeah, hey, hold on. Yeah, the film tries to play that off as it's a crazy thing. No, it's not. If that's a public school, you should not be raising money for a faith-based charity.
That's very messed up.
Yeah. That's what the lawsuit should be about.
Exactly. No.
I literally rewound a couple minutes because I was like, whoa, they're not dropping this in completely without context.
Yeah.
And how did the other teacher not think, there's a moment she showed her religion?
Yeah, come on, she's been doing this.
She thought of that chewing the stick metaphor and was like, I don't need anything beyond that.
Yep. Amy talks to Grace in the parking lot, asks if she thinks this whole thing is worth it. Grace says she hopes so. Amy is like, they're looking to destroy you, and I don't just mean financially. which I thought was a good quote. It's another weird 20-second scene for the bare minimum of women talking to other women and character interactions.
Yes.
Gotta pad that runtime.
I mean, they padded it. They padded the fuck out of it.
Were these writers paid per second? Like, it's insane. It doesn't need to be this long.
I would be surprised if these writers were paid at all, Josh.
Yeah.
We cut to, oh Christ, here we go. We cut to Dave and Jude at this preacher luncheon. They're having a tuna melt, and we get car rental guy, which was a moment, just a breath of fresh air, because he's like, yeah, here's this provolone tuna melt I invented. I don't like customer service, so I wanted to be a waiter. And they're like, why? And he's like, well, because I do Chekhov at the dinner theater every evening. And I'm like, oh man, I love you, car rental guy.
I hope he's in the third one.
I want him to be the third one.
He's just every time he shows up, I'm like, yes, an actor.
Finally.
Yeah.
Someone
A professional.
Thank Christ.
Let's see. I think it's important to note that table is table of stereotypes.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no,
it's got every stereotypical Christian preacher.
Yeah, basically.
He does nerdy professor with glasses.
Can we also take just 30 seconds to mention that the black preacher at the table is the one to say, we have a silent majority? Can we just unpack that historical context for a second?
Yeah. That sucks the moon right out the sky. That's so bad.
Mm-hmm.
For anyone who doesn't understand.
Yeah, please. Okay, that's me, actually. I know the silent majority is a word, but I don't actually know exactly what it means.
It all started with Nixon, actually, who said there was a silent majority of Americans that he never said this is like white people who are tired of brown people. But what he said is they're tired of urban crime. They're tired of, feeling unsafe. And feeling like they can't express their feelings in public and their opinions. So, like, it is racist and it is racism. And it is basically people to say there is a silent majority of white people who are racist and will vote with their race in mind.
Yeah, so we're witnessing an inverse dog whistle with that line, which we love.
Maybe that was a cry for help. From that actor, it
maybe.
Wasn't in there, and he was like, God, get me out of this movie.
Yeah.
I read the script, oh God.
Yeah. Before we get into the actual important part of this scene, I do want to mention that Pastor Dave did say that he got a Toyota Prius because since the car wouldn't start last time. So that's Toyota bump number 2. But Here's the important part. So this guy who I don't know, I assume he's some sort of Christian celebrity, sits at the head of the table and he's like, "Hey, fellow pastors, we got to get worried. Somebody in my friend in the prosecutor's office said that they're gonna start subpoenaing copies of all the preacher's sermons for the last 3 months." And everyone's like, "Wait, what are you talking about?" He's like, "Well, they tried it in Houston." And at the end of the show, I'd like to unpack that because there is a story about what they tried in Houston, and I'd like to discuss the actual context of that. And he's like, I think this is just the beginning. We've been ignoring it. And like you said, like there's this black guy and there's this guy with shitty glasses, and they're like, we should ignore it. The silent majority is going to help. It'll correct itself with time. And then Dave is like, no, I'm serving on a jury that touches on these issues. If we do nothing, we'll be persecuted. The message of the gospel has a standing in the way of things that powerful people want, and it's made us a lot of enemies. We're at war. And just the fact that this movie takes place in America, and the fact that we know how there's just a huge evangelical billionaire lobby in the United States, it is so profoundly upsetting to see, them taking the side of the oppressed poor classes. It's just... It sucks.
Because I really thought that this scene was like a roundabout way for the ACLU lawyer to get like Pastor Dave's stuff to get him thrown out of the jury. I was like, ooh, we got some like lawyer espionage shit going on. But they were like, that's too interesting, and that goes somewhere.
Yeah, no. This will be a setup for a completely different film.
We need this plot to die in this movie.
Yep.
And to be resurrected in another.
Yep. Let's see. Cut to Grace's house. The lawyer and her are eating Chinese food and reviewing case files. Grandpa doesn't want to come down because he thinks it's a date, and Grace needs a man. Grace is clearly into this dude. So she's asking like, why, what did you want to do when you grew up? And he's like, I wanted to be Batman, which I thought was funny.
Yeah.
And he was like, so were you all set to go to the convent when you were younger? And she's like, I was actually raised in a non-religious household. But one day I was walking home from a class after a bad day, and I walked in front of a church, and the sign on the church said, "Who do you say that I am?" And that was her journey into Christianity. But I think that brings another good point in this film, is that basically there are no people in this film who are raised Christians. They are all converts.
Yes.
Well, that's the evangelical dream.
Exactly.
Like it is, like 1000% is you gotta convert them. We are conversion-based religion.
Mm-hmm.
And even like if you are raised in it, you still have to accept God at some point in your life, which is weird because you're like, well, I've been doing the same exact shit for 14 years and now I'm a Christian. So it's the focus on conversion is so beat meaty for these people. They just jerk off to that idea.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to get to conversion here in a little while. We cut to Martin's dorm room. His dad shows up from China. And he talks to Martin, and he's like, Martin, you've disgraced our family. I'm coming to take you home. And Martin's like, no, I believe in God now. I'm cool. And his dad smacks him. And I like that because it's the second time we see a person of color hitting their child of color in this franchise. So I'm hoping that it stays consistent in the third one as well.
I'm surprised they didn't hit us more with atheist communists.
That's a good. There is a part where they're like, when Martin decides he's going to be a preacher, and Jude is like, in your country you're going to have difficulties. But yeah, it is strange that they didn't hit us more with that, because that seems like an actual plot thread they could pull instead of just inventing one out of thin air.
You're right. That would be too interesting.
Yeah, that would have some basis in reality.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. God forbid they do something that goes somewhere.
Yeah. Okay, so Martin goes to the church, cut in between shots of Dave, who got a subpoena, which we learn later is for his sermons. I didn't know that at the time, but it is for his sermons. And Martin plays, Nearer My God to Thee on the piano. I actually kind of liked this scene. I thought it was kind of moving. It was pretty good until Brooke, like a lonesome ghost who haunts the church until her grim business that keeps her tethered to this mortal coil is finished, appears from nowhere and says, "Oh, Martin, that was beautiful." And Martin's like, "Excuse me, what the fuck?"
I love that everything.
So the secret is Brooke's brother's not the one that's dead. She is.
That would explain why nobody can hear her.
That would also explain why her parents fucking hate her.
Yeah, because she's a revenant.
I love the weird aspect of every time anything important happens at a church, it's just with the pastor there alone.
Yeah, the pastor is there, but not necessarily doing anything.
And this might be evangelical bias here, but that never happens. Like, you can't just walk into a church.
You can't just get into a church.
They're not open all the time.
Yeah, it's good shit. We love that. Let's see. But then Martin begins to talk to Brooke, and they're gonna have a discussion about religion. So that's great. We love that for them. Back to Tom and Grace. They're reviewing the case. He's like, this ACLU guy, he doesn't make mistakes. We need to knock out punch. Grace, why did you feel compelled to bring up Jesus in the first place? And she's like, well, why shouldn't I have? It's my right. And then they're talking about it, and then she's like, I think we missed the point about history. Just because certain facts happen to be recorded in the Bible doesn't mean they stop being facts. So they changed their lawyer strategy, and they want to separate historical quotes from Jesus from his spiritual teachings. She's like, every credible historian admits Jesus existed. They're going to, use Jesus as a historic figure as a defense. She does pull a copy of Man, Myth, Messiah by Rice Brox, I believe. And she hands it to him. And she's like, you got some reading to do. Fun fact, that book, Man, Myth, Messiah, is written by the man who wrote the book version of God's Not Dead. So there's a lot of author product placement in this film.
This movie's just a giant circle jerk.
Yeah, it really is.
It's just how can more Christian groups get each other off?
This is really proving my point about this film and evangelicalism all being one giant multi-level marketing scheme.
I mean, honestly, like, so many people did get paid for this. This movie didn't do as good as God's Not Dead 1, but, like, it still made, like, over 20 mil. So, like,
well, the biggest problem is ACLU lawyer is just not as good as our great atheist.
He's not Kevin Sorbo. It's hard to be Kevin Sorbo.
Yeah, I was hoping to bring him back to life for this one.
Yeah.
I don't know how,
wish.
But like
as a Force ghost. Yeah.
Maybe a Satanist group brings him back to life.
Oh fuck! I would love that. I would love if we got deeper and deeper into supernatural shit.
Yeah, Metallica is like.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Raises up.
Yeah.
We cut back to Brooke and Martin. Brooke says her brother wrote so many notes in the margins of his Bible that she feels like this is the first time she truly got to know him. If that's the case, you're a bad sibling, Brooke. Sorry. She wonders why her brother never told her about his faith. And Martin says sharing one's faith with your family, especially not knowing how they'll react, can be difficult, which seems like an understatement, and I appreciate it, Martin. You're not trying to get sympathy for yourself. He says that there are more than 5 minutes waiting for her and her brother. Martin asks Brooke to invite Jesus into her heart so they can have eternal life. And Brooke has a conversion experience. She does that evangelical thing. You guys probably can talk about that more. But my understanding is that y'all love to invite Jesus into your heart.
Yeah. That's where he belongs.
It's a literal come to Jesus moment. Like,
yeah.
There's really not much more to say about it.
I did want to say, Michael, that our relationship as siblings was not changed when I read the margins in your Bible. It was mostly like, they're watching me.
Help. Anyone?
This seems slightly homophobic.
Underlines and what the fuck? Every margin just has a WTF.
Oh.
Yeah, but like again, this is the fascination with conversion that I think sets Christianity apart from like a lot of other Abrahamic religions. That it's just, especially evangelicals, are just so in love with the idea of converting a heathen atheist, and that these heathen atheists are the ones that are actually like close-minded, which is baffling. But like I know that point is like. It's easy pickings, but it's so baffling that they try to push the narrative of, well, we're actually the open-minded ones here.
It's pretty upsetting. We can't deny that. Let's see. So we cut back to the courthouse where they're preparing their historical defense. They bring in author Lee Strobel, who is an actual apologetics author who immediately plugs his book so the jury can pick up a copy after court. He's
respect.
Like, you know,
respect.
It's hard out there for an author. You got to make money wherever you can. But he says he can prove the existence of Jesus beyond a reasonable doubt. Point one, the court uses BC and AD dates, so that seems like Jesus existed.
That killed me.
His next point is that some other historian lists 39 historical documents that make reference to Jesus, including a grumpy German gentleman who is an atheist but says that Jesus' crucifixion is indisputable. And he says that denying the existence of Jesus doesn't make him go away. It just proves no amount of evidence will convince you. Josh, I don't know if you have actually studied the historical documentation of Jesus at all, but I mean, can you speak to this sort of argument?
I can a little bit. I have taken quite a few history classes on Christ, and it is absolutely baffling, the idea that it goes back to this unity of Christianity that this franchise has an issue with, because as most people that study this stuff can tell you, there's so many documents that mention Jesus that mention completely wildly different things, which might have to do more with the next witness. So I'll save a little bit of that commentary. But the every historical individual acknowledges the existence of Jesus. It's like, yeah, but that doesn't mean he said these things.
Yeah.
So it's such a leap in logic. And I'm not saying that there's not a good chance that an individual named Jesus was crucified, because I'm sure that like a very strong argument can be made for that. I think I would even make that case.
Yeah.
But that has nothing to do with what's going on. It has nothing to do with her taking a preference over one religion than others in a classroom.
Yeah. Yeah. The fact that Jesus, even if Jesus was an actual historical god, that's not really what's on trial here.
It's the classic like Mott and Bailey, and not to get like too much into that, where like the idea is, oh well, you can make an argument that she was bringing up religion in the classroom, but what you can't make an argument is this very specific argument that Jesus as a human being probably existed.
Yeah.
And by making that argument, it makes all the Christians go, oh, we did good. We did good.
Exactly.
But it did nothing to address the main point.
Yeah, it's
No.
not the main point. It's a complete misdirect. Let's see. The next scene is a scene between Amy and Reverend Jude, but it's basically just like Reverend Jude being like, hey, Amy, you should be religious because the Newsboys faith healed you. And she's like, I'll think about it. Thanks. So then we cut back.
How does she not start a Newsboys cult?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, like if that happened, listen, if Linkin Park like healed my hemorrhoids back in 2007, I would absolutely be doing that to this day.
Yes.
That would be tight.
Especially if they cured your fatal hemorrhoids.
Terminal cancer. Yeah.
I have some days where I feel like my hemorrhoids are terminal. So
is it too late to rename the podcast to Terminal Hemorrhoids?
Maybe that'll be the subtitle for this one.
I feel like the subtitle still needs to be Amy's Not Dead.
Amy's Not Dead.
Listen, we need to keep the original name for the SEO.
Yes.
Let's see. We come back to the the courtroom. No, we come back to the prosecutor's office because Dave is coming to turn in his sermon transcripts. The prosecutor is eating chicken like a nasty boy, and Dave gives him this letter, and the prosecutor's like, wait, that's not all your sermons. And Dave is like, no, this is a letter that says that I'm not going to do that. And the prosecutor's like, well, you know what they say about the squeaky wheel? I say that the nail that sticks up gets hammered down.
So mad. The next words out of his mouth weren't, and it's hammer time. I was so angry.
They missed so many opportunities to make this a good film.
It was right there. And then they could have done some cheesy, like, into the next scene.
That would have been great. That would have raised this movie a full star, in my opinion.
I would have turned right around in my review.
Yep. As he is leaving the prosecutor's office, Dave clutches his right side because the love of Christ for standing up for his faith has just caused his appendix to burst.
Because God hates this man.
Because God hates Pastor Dave so much.
Yes.
We cut to Brooke watching Apex News while Amy defends Grace. And then Brooke is like, hey, I'm going to call my friend Marlene. We're going to do more stuff. Anyway, cut back to the jury where a fellow juror is like, hey, Pastor Dave, maybe you should go to a fucking hospital, dude. And he's like, nah, I'm fine. And what I liked was that I had paused my watching of this movie to take that note. And then as soon as I unpaused it, he passes the fuck out. He like falls completely down and they call an ambulance and it's really funny.
And again, just because I was hoping for something to happen in this movie, for a split second, I was like, the ACLU poisoned him.
That would be so good if there is.
It would have been. If the ACLU had subpoenaed his sermons to get him thrown out and then poisoned him, that would have been amazing.
ACLU assassination conspiracy.
Let me write these movies for you, please.
That would be so tight. So one medical note is that they do actually do a thing where they press down on his appendix, and he's like, ow. And that's not, shockingly, that's not medically accurate. It does take a couple seconds for McBurney's point to have that rebound pain. But I was impressed that because I saw him clutch his right side and I was like, oh, that's appendicitis. So I'm glad that they had a bare minimum medical realism after the last one.
So I'm not a medical professional, but like if someone's appendix burst, would you say, I hope you're not too attached to your appendix?
Okay. Here's the thing. Yes. Those were EMTs. That is absolutely a thing an EMT would say.
Okay.
Yankees are rowdy.
They're rowdy boys. You can't help it.
You can't control them. Anyway, we cut to protesters outside the courtroom. The Christians are all scared, and they're doing a silent protests, as Christians always do. And
insert clip of Westboro Baptist Church.
Yeah,
here.
insert clips for March for Life. We love that. Love when Christians do a silent, non-threatening protest. We do see that this person who has been, like, we've been seeing shots of her in the audience, but, like, it's this lady with, like, blue lipstick and, like, tattoos, and we're like, oh no, it's this goth woman. She's definitely a Satan worshiper. But she is tapped to replace Dave as the alternate.
There's a twist that involves her that made me throw my tablet across the room.
It's really good. It's a really good twist.
Okay, I saw it coming. Like, I don't know how that surprised you.
I did not see it coming. I was so excited.
I put it in my notes when they tapped her. When they tapped her, I put it in my notes.
Oh man,
I did not see it coming.
Well, let's get there.
You're a wiser man than us, Michael. We bring in the second author, who is like another guy who gets to pitch his book. But basically his whole thing is that, like, he was an ex-homicide detective, and he never solved his cases using DNA evidence. Instead, he solved them with eyewitness claims. And he's going to use his special cop magic to determine that the eyewitness credibility in the Gospels make sure that Jesus is real. He calls them unintended eyewitness support statements, and he talks about how there's, like, differences in the gospel where Jesus is being beaten, and they're like, oh, prophesy Christ who hit you, and it's like, oh, but in one gospel we don't know why they're saying it, and the other one it's because he was blindfolded. The ACLU lawyer is astonished by this turn of events. He doesn't have any follow-up questions.
This pissed me off so much, and it made me angry because, like, as someone who studied this a little bit, there is a general consensus that I think it's Matthew, Mark, and Luke were written So Matthew, Luke, and John were written after Mark, and that they include a different source, and that's why there's some discrepancy. Yeah. And that this source is referred to as Q due to some, like, German acronym. So I was like, okay, maybe we're going to get into, like, some fun, zesty debate here. But no, this movie, much like the other one is, we're going to give you uncut 5 minutes of one argument, followed up by the other person going, shucks, that's a good argument.
Oh, you got me there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, boy.
Yeah, I mean, that is the problem with these films, is that, like, you could have a genuine discussion about, like, the scriptural texts and, like, the sources used inside them, but it completely just does not want to engage with that.
Because then they'd have to make an opinion about Christianity, and this movie has no interest in defining Christianity.
Yeah, it's a good time, and we're so happy for that. Let's see.
I'm genuinely angry. I might need to take a lap.
Oh no! All right, I think we're getting through there. We're getting to the climax. So they're like, oh no, we have no more people to call. We have no more witnesses. And then Brooke bursts into the courtroom without so much as a security guard with her, and she's like, this case is supposed to be about me. And everyone's like, get the fuck out, Brooke. You're almost 17. It's not like you can't think for yourself, as you say. Maybe you should not try to burst into a court of law without, any sort of police escort. But that's fine. She's a white person, so it's okay.
I would have had respect for this movie if they did just, like, shoot her immediately.
They shot her dead, yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be incredible.
Credits roll.
Tom is like, if I call her, what am I going to hear? And then Grace is like, the truth. And Tom's like, all right, I call this lady to the stand, and the judge is totally fine with that because that's how court proceedings go. You can just do that, I guess. And
this feels like Ace Attorney. Like, it feels like a video game court.
Gotcha.
Objection. Yeah.
Objection.
It really is.
Can the thumbnail be a picture of that dude but edited in Ace Attorney over him?
I will do my best. So Brooke is called, and Tom is like, okay, who brought up Jesus first, you or the teacher? And Brooke's like, no, I did, because it seemed like MLK and Jesus were saying similar things. Like, all right, Brooke, we get it. And then the ACLU lawyer is like, do you think your teacher likes you, Grace? maybe, do you think she was trying to possibly convert you? Did she ever talk to you about Jesus? And she's like, well, no, not at first. And he's like, oh, then when did she talk to you? And she's like, well, I tracked her down at a cafe once, and then she did bring up Jesus, which, like, even if I was on the jury, I'd be like, okay, listen, if a kid tracked me down to a cafe, I would say anything to get them to leave.
Oh, and then we get the big bombshell. My brother died 6 months ago, and my atheist parents don't love us because they no longer care about him.
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe they don't spell it out like that until like the last fucking 20 minutes of the movie, but they're like, yeah, anyway, his brother's dead. But she's like, but I got his old Bible, and once I started reading it, I didn't want to stop. And I love how these films make like the Bible sound like doing drugs.
Yeah, it gave me some of that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John in my veins.
Mm-hmm.
I started at Genesis, and before I knew it, it was Revelation.
Once you pop, you can't stop.
Once you pop, the fun don't stop. So she admits that she might even be a believer, quote, maybe even a Christian, which is a wild way to phrase that.
The two
and
genders.
Like, here's the thing: they admit that a 16-year-old girl is now converted to a different religion because of her teacher's direct involvement, and that's a hugely compelling reason to not have religion in schools. Like, teachers are great and they deserve to be paid a lot more, and also I'd be upset if my teacher was trying to convert my kid.
Yeah.
Well, especially in a insert something here history course.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, Christianity has a lot of importance in history. However, it is weird if you're a teacher going in with, oh, my biases will show up.
Yeah.
Because you're going to start talking. You're not going to talk about like what Christianity did wrong in the with the civil rights movement, just with what it did right.
Yeah, exactly. And yep. So this turns the whole attitude of the court and the jury around. Everyone's like, oh, they lied to us. And Tom admits to Grace, like, hey, we're probably going to lose this case. And she's like, oh, I'm going to lose everything. And that's that scene. We cut to the hospital. We see Pastor Dave watching on the TV. And he's like, oh, I don't actually know. Is this the part where Martin comes in and he's like, hey, I'm going to be a preacher? Or is that, no, that's later. Great. Cool. This scene is pointless.
Yeah, every Pastor Dave scene is pointless. There's
a lot of, in this stretch of the film, a lot of like 30-second scenes that mean nothing.
Yeah, it's really irritating. Right now, the next scene is Grace doing a cray prying at home. She literally says, like, Father, take this from me, which is a Jesus quote. Grace is being metaphorically crucified. We cut back to Amy in her Prius, who, Brooke is talking to her, and she's like, oh, did I ruin everything? And Amy's like, I think you should try to, even if you can't talk to Grace, I think you should do something to try to make her feel better and let her know you care. Then we cut back to Grace in her house talking to Grandpa, and she's like, I can't reach out and touch Jesus like I used to. And Grandpa drops some wisdom. He's like, darling, you should realize that in these moments of trial, the teacher's always quiet during the test. It's like, damn, Grandpa, you got me.
You should hook up with dementia grandma.
You need to go, dude. There is a knock at the door.
Yeah.
And it is a horde of Christian high schoolers with candles who start singing How Great Thou Art. This is the part where I cried.
Aaron, no, this is creepy. This is fucking creepy.
It's fucking no. If a group of high school students tracked me down in my apartment and started singing, I would call the cops. I also have a deep connection to religious music. I sang in the choir for a long time. I genuinely love religious music. That is probably the thing I miss most about church is church songs, because I don't know about y'all, but Catholic songs fucking slap. And I just started tearing up. Even when I watched it again this morning, I still got kind of teary. I was like, how great thou art. You're so It was
Aaron puts his hand up.
Yeah.
He calls the newsboys.
Yeah. It's a good song, and I'm a trash person.
I had to take my headphones off and walk away. It was so cringy. I just was like, oh.
It's the most cornball shit, and I fell for it because I'm the kind of person who loves Kingdom Hearts, so I'm immune to this. Michael, I'm sure you understand.
And then she pulled out her Keyblade, and
there was a Keyblade in this movie.
I also want to point out that she was told, hey, Brooke, you shouldn't talk to her. And she took the Broadway, well, it's not talking if I sing.
That's a good point.
Okay, to be fair, though, this film would be a lot better if it were a musical.
Yeah, that's true.
If this movie had a genre, it would be so much better. Well, it just had a genre and a plot.
There are some pretty good musicals. They were just written about Christianity. They're just written by a queer person, so.
Yep.
Oh, we should talk about Joseph sometime.
Yes.
Can we like this? I should bring up later because we'll have to edit this out. But can we please do like this on Prince of Egypt? Because that would be fun.
Prince of Egypt. Oh yeah.
It's a good movie.
That's an actual good film.
We'll just talk about how much better it is than these.
Yeah. Well, after we finish the trilogy, maybe we'll look into Prince of Egypt.
Okay.
Cut to Dave back in the hospital watching Mike Huckabee. Because he's on this TV show, and he's talking about how, it's, Christians are being persecuted and they've got to stand up for their beliefs. And Dave is like, man, I just wish I was back on the jury so I could help Grace out. And then Jude is like, don't worry, it'll all work out. And he's like, how did you get here, Jude? And he's like, I took your Prius. It runs great. Has a great fuel economy.
God hates Pastor Dave.
It's really good. Martin shows up,
but apparently Prius.
Yeah.
God loves a Prius.
God loves Toyota and hates Dave.
Martin is weird because not made in America.
Yeah. Martin shows up and Dave, like an asshole, asks if he has more questions. Like, no, dude, you're in the hospital. Why the fuck do you think he's here? Be cool.
This is why God hates you.
This is the part where Dave is like, hey, what's up? And he's like, oh, I'm going to be a minister in China. And Jude is like, hey, China doesn't like ministers. And Martin's like, I know, but it'll all be okay. And then Mike Huckabee barrels the camera and says, Christians are soon going to be forced to choose between obeying the law of man or following the word of God. Thanks, Mike.
Michael, do you remember when you were forced to follow Christianity or the law when the law said you can't get married?
Yep. I remember that.
Yeah,
I remember that.
I just wanted us to kind of remember where we were as a society. Okay.
I mean, this movie was probably filmed in 2015, which is when gay marriage became like the law of the land. So, I bet they were feeling some persecution at that point.
Because if the gays get married, then
then we all have to get gay married.
Yeah,
that's just the law.
Legally.
Yeah, it's now law.
Yeah, just like in California.
Yeah, now we're all California. We're all California.
we all live in subdivisions of California. Cut back to the courthouse. The Christians are protesting silently again. They're getting yelled at by mean liberals. 100 new Christian protesters come out to support the good guys. Brooke's friends are like, hey, why don't you burst back into the courtroom?
It worked so well last time.
It's fine. We got this. They say God's got this, which sent me straight to hell.
Yeah, God, it would have been really funny if, because God's got a terrible lawyer, so it'd been really, really funny if they were like, God is a bad lawyer, if that was the plot of this movie.
Shitty lawyer. Oh my God, this is the most baffling part in the film. So Grace is like, where's my lawyer? Because Tom hasn't shown up yet. Then he walks in. He's wearing a nice suit. There's a whole subplot about shoes that I do not understand, but he's wearing nice shoes now. And he's like, hey judge, I'm gonna call Grace Wesley to testify, which maybe she should have been witness number 1 or 2. I don't know.
Yeah.
But she's the last one to call, and the courtroom, the judge is like, I guess, sure. And then she's like, do I have to? And he's like, you're a hostile witness now. And she's like, hey, what the fuck? And then he completely flips on her. Tom is like, hey, Grace, say you're sorry and that you made a mistake. And she's like, no, I'm not going to do that. And he's like, what do you want? And she's like, I want to be able to tell the truth. And he's like, whose truth are you referring to? And he's like, wait. She's like, why are you doing this? And he asks her, did you or did you not tell me that Jesus spoke to you personally? Referring to that conversion experience she had when she was younger. And she's like, that was personal, but yes. And then he gets extremely aggro. He starts yelling at her, and he demands Grace that tell everyone in the courtroom, that what she believes. And she's like, well, God asked me, who do you say that I am? And she said that he is the Christ, the Son of the living God. And his argument just becomes that, like, if this person in a public capacity has a deep personal religious belief, the public cannot trust her to serve in that capacity because that belief will influence the way she behaves in all aspects. And he says, quote, in the name of tolerance and diversity, I say we destroy her, which sounds like it's straight from Sailor Moon. It is.
Yeah.
Sailor Moon or Mary Williamson, one of the two.
Well, they have the same writer.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Well, there's a point that, like, he's like, and with the authority of the law, and we all know authority comes at the point of a gun.
Yeah, he's like, we can't trust these people because, like, how are we going to enforce them if we make them hide their beliefs? Well, we all know that enforcement is always at the end of a gun. Like, holy shit. And even the judge.
Well, they had to shoehorn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead. They had to shoehorn in, like, everyone needs to go buy a gun because they haven't checked off all, like, the conservative principle boxes yet.
Yeah.
I was so ready for it to go full libertarian of, like, the government has a monopoly on force.
Yeah. I mean, we're actually getting to that point in real life, but I don't want to talk about that.
Also, a quick side note to give us some levity. When they were talking about, well, who do you think I am? And she said, the Christ, it brought back a memory that for about 15 years of my life, I thought Christ was just Jesus' last name.
Yeah, that's fair. I also had that phase for a bit.
Yeah, and then I asked my dad why was it Mary and Joseph Christ, and he has been disappointed in me ever since.
Yeah, I'm glad we're all disappointments to our fathers. That's why we get along today.
Yes.
Love you, Dad.
Sorry, Pops.
I hope you're not listening to this.
Oh, please.
I really hope no one I've ever met is listening to this. So yeah, basically he turns on Grace. Tom is like, hey, I dare you to convict her. And then he makes her, like, cry, and then she's just crying there while the jury deliberates. There's a lot of long, sad shots of the empty jury seats. Amy, the reporter, makes a phone call to the newsboys during a concert, and she's like, hey, can you pray for us?
Let's be specific. It's during their residency because it's not just a one-off concert. They have a reoccurring residency here. They play every Wednesday.
Yeah, exactly. No, they're a residency in Benton, Arkansas, and
that's where the Newsboys fans be.
You're probably not 100% wrong.
It's a hotbed for Christianity or atheism. Like, they need to pick one.
You really need to pick one. Yeah, I love that in this Christian town also the Newsboys plays every week. So
it doesn't allow crowds.
Yeah.
To stadiums filled.
Yeah. All right. So there's shots of everyone praying. We get a shot of Tom reading Man, Myth, Messiah with the cover extremely visible, so we know he's still a good guy. We come back to the court. The jury comes back, and they're all like, we find in favor of Grace Wesley, and all the atheists in the court are so mad. Everyone's, like, cheering except for, the bad man, who says Tom has nice shoes. They're all filing out of the court. Blue lipstick girl, who's now wearing a dress, she gives Grace a weed nod. And then we get a shot of the back of her head, and we see that she has a cross tattoo on the back of her neck. She was a believer all along. Which is it's fucking the worst Shyamalan twist I've ever seen. I
laughed so hard. I laughed, like, verbally noise came out of my mouth that was joyous. It was so good.
It's such a good scene. Funny. I'm glad they included it. It's so
funny. It is, like, one of the notes that, like, I feel like I would have given them. If I would have been like, oh, no. She can't just give him the weed nod. No. Cross on the back of the neck.
Exactly. We cannot make this less subtle, like,
No
or
one
more
here
subtle.
is paying attention. They're just here for the pretty noises.
Exactly. Well,
Well,
so
and
then,
speaking of can't make it less subtle, why don't you go share the good news is what is
yeah,
said.
she says to Brooke,
Yeah.
"You've been silent for too long, Brooke. Go share the good news." But
Yep.
before Brooke goes out, Grace talks to Tom, and Tom is like, "I'm sorry for doing this to you. I had to make the jury believe that I had turned on you, so that way your reactions would be genuine, and they would feel bad for you, and that way they wouldn't convict you." Which seems like a very bad strategy to have in court, in my opinion.
It also felt like a really easy mistrial.
Yeah, like clearly.
My lawyer did exactly the opposite of what I told him to.
Yeah.
Can I get a new one?
Yeah, like honestly, like that case should have been thrown out immediately, but the judge was just like, "Oh, well, it ended happy, so I don't care."
Yeah.
But yes, Brooke goes out to spread the good news. She comes out to the courtroom. There's a dramatic shot where she's looking down over this wide crowd of protesters, and then they're all like looking at her like, and then she's like, "God's not dead." And then and there's an eruption of joy. Everyone's so happy. And it just made me think, like, what would have happened in the inverse situation where she comes out and she's like, "God is dead."
I would have loved if they had done this, like, it suddenly is black and white, and there's no sound, and we just see the reactions, so we don't know who won or lost. And then she runs out and throws open the door, and there's this blinding white light, and then the crowd is hushed. And then that's how we find out.
That would have been a good shot.
That would have been such
like,
a good shot.
Oh, see.
But that would have made people have to think, did they win or lose?
And we can't have any ambiguity in this film.
Can we talk about ACLU lawyer's assistant, who was like, "Are we gonna retry?" And he's like, "Nah."
We don't
They
want
got
them.
me.
Yeah, they got me. If we try it again, they'll set a precedent. And also, they proved their existence of Jesus. So, I don't want to go.
The one lady.
They got us with the BCAD.
Yep.
God, maybe that meant something else.
Oh, God. And then we cut to the Newsboys concert. They're singing a new song about religion in schools. And I'm just like, I can't believe you. I can't believe you do this to me.
Again, but they did the same
So
thing
gross.
where they open with Newsboy music video and they close with Newsboy music video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, there's no originality in these films at all. And then at the end, we get the ending shot is them, chanting "God's not dead, he's surely alive," which is a garbage chant.
Yeah.
God's not dead would have been fine. It's cheesy, but it's fine. Don't fucking try to fit a whole song in here. Like,
Yeah.
I would love if they just started singing and it was like a flash mob. That
would have been better.
Outside.
And then the first film, it fades to like a black and white text, and it's like, connect all your friends with the God's Not Dead 2 conversation by posting "Silence is the enemy of truth. I will make Jesus known. # the human right."
Let me tweet that real quick.
No, please.
I want to make
If
sure
you
I
do,
follow
I'm
this
blocking
message.
you.
I bet there's probably some tweets from 2016 that did do that, and I'd love to read that through that hashtag.
I would love a list of politicians to now scroll across the screen.
Yeah, I mean, oh, hi, Ted Cruz.
Yeah.
And then lastly, we said before, there is a post-credit scene. Dave and Jude are walking back to the church, and Dave gets arrested by the cops because he didn't produce his sermons, and they're all like, "Oh no!" And that's left as a cliffhanger, like, "Oh no, what are we gonna do? We're gonna pray." But it's like, I don't know. I did hate the fact that the cops do apologize and they're like, "Sorry, Pastor," because we can't have cops doing bad things in movies.
So I felt like that was realistic because this is a blonde white guy.
Yeah, that's fair.
So like I feel
man.
like he could have shot the cop and they'd be like, "Dude, my bad. I'm really sorry."
Mental illness.
Yep. Let me go buy you some from fast food.
I was very nervous that they were just gonna like shoot his friend and then arrest him.
That would have been a twist. And
that would have been a twist, yeah.
I mean, I would have hated it. I'm glad they didn't do it, but it would have been something.
I'm gonna be honest. I wish they would have, because I know that's what they think. I know that's what they believe, and they're just scared.
I mean,
terrible, honestly.
What they would have done is they would have made Pastor Jude like do something extremely gross and stereotypical. Like he would have just like immediately pulled out a heroin syringe and injected it into like 5 preschoolers around him, and then like pulled out a bazooka, and then they would have heroically shot him.
Yeah.
Because as we all know, in police-involved shootings, that's what happens.
And the news would have said it was a cell phone.
Yeah. So I do have a couple points of discussion. The first is that like the way that Grace handles herself throughout the movie just stands in stark contrast to the cases in which we do actually see Christian people trying to insert their religious beliefs into public life, like with that Kentucky clerk a couple years ago. Like Grace isn't actively impeding people's like legal rights. She's just like, oh, I've been caught up in something bigger than myself, as opposed to in real life where people are actively just like, no, fuck you. This is my belief.
Well, it's this is what Christians see when they have like the Kentucky case, like where the woman was like, well, I'm not going to give marriage certificates to gay men because of my religious beliefs. What they see is nothing. They see the same thing as just answering a question in a classroom.
Yes.
And those two are so wildly different. And you can even see that in like what they bring up in the case, where that's the point of the case, not her accepting donations to her religious charity.
Yeah, it's so wild.
And like this, even the real life case that they like kind of sourced, kind of mentioned with Houston, like that was big bad lesbian Anise Parker who signed that bill.
Yes.
So like it really does perpetuate, we are being victimized by the all-powerful gays that can't, be protected from firing, can't be protected from being kicked out of their own home, but they do have the power to persecute Christians. So
those gay people, they hold all the strings in the courts. I'm glad you brought that up, Michael, because that the reference to what they tried in Houston is a reference to the Houston Equal Rights Ordinance. Basically in I think it was 2015, Houston passed a law, like you said, like protecting queer people. It's like an extra layer of protection that protects queer people, and I mean all people actually. It's not just queer people. It's just like an equal rights, like, hey, you can't kick somebody out of their job or their home or whatever for their gender identity or their sexual orientation. And I mean, this turned into a bathroom bill thing where like Mike Huckabee was like, oh, they're gonna let trans people use whatever bathroom they want. I hate that. I'm going to start a whole thing. And what it turned into was that like they did eventually remove that bathroom bill, like that bathroom like identity law. So I mean that kind of sucks, but the whole issue that Mike Huckabee was upset about doesn't actually happen in real life. But the what happens is that they're trying to gather petitions to oppose this law, this ordinance, the conservatives in Houston, and there's a controversy because there's a man who is like the head of like a group of pastors in Houston, Dave Welch. He's of the Houston Area Pastors Council. Started this petition to gather up signatures, and the petition, he didn't get enough signatures because he fucked it up. But the problem is that like the city of Houston, they hired some attorneys who were subpoenaing like religious folks because of this guy's involvement in trying to gather up these petitions, because they were pastors, and that's a violation of the Johnson Amendment. You can't have politics, and faith, the separation of church and state. And I mean, there is a conversation to be had about the actions that the Houston government did in that case, but that is not the case that is happening in this film. They're just like, oh, they're calling for sermons for no reason, right? Instead of actually looking for a specific violation of a specific amendment. So that was cool.
Why do you guys think that they take such a all atheists are evil, but we're not going to do it in an interesting way approach in these movies? Because like I poke a lot of fun at them not doing the fun thing, like having Pastor Dave be poisoned or getting subpoenaed by the ACLU. Like, why not, though? If they're going to make him evil, make him evil.
I think it's a lack of thoughtfulness. I think it's just pure and simple. I don't think there's any like thought going, oh, we can't do that. That's not believable. I think it's literally just no one had that thought. This works. Let's move on.
Yeah, when you've been only exposed to a certain kind of media your whole life, you don't really have like other creative ideas, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Because these do vibe very much like other religious movies that I've seen, except they're just so much longer.
Yeah, they're longer and less interesting.
Yes.
And lastly, I just wanted to touch upon the point that this movie spreads a very insidious message about the need for Christians not only to participate in public life, which is fine, but to ensure Christianity is always allowed to trump any restrictions the government may place on a private citizen. Like the whole theme throughout this movie is like Christians are called to action, whether by, sitting in on juries or voting in line with their religious beliefs, or fighting against government restrictions. The purpose of this movie is to tell Christians like, hey, you need to get involved in civic government or outside of government and put pressure on institutions to make sure that Christianity above all is the most important right, the human right. And it really skews me out.
Yeah, behind all the incompetence, there's this deep evil. And like, I don't want to be hyperbolic here, but it's a bad evil movie.
It perpetuates the same like call to action that the religious right has been doing for 30, 40 years now, where it's, if we tell Christians that not only do you need to be involved in public life, but your Christianity has to seep out of your pores in everything that you do, then they will be the most active voters, because it's no longer about participation. It's about eternal damnation.
I mean, honestly, yeah, that is why when I was younger in Catholic school and I was still a Catholic, I was like, it was the 2012 election. I was like, I don't know that I can vote for Obama, because if I do that, I'll go to hell because he supports abortion. But I was like, I don't like Mitt Romney because he's going to keep us, doing all sorts of other terrible shit. And I mean, that it's the way that the right has weaponized Christianity is such a travesty, and will, I mean, ultimately be a terrible, terrible wound on the history of America, if it already has not been.
Yeah.
And these movies just are pure undistilled essence of that.
So when were you guys converted in the movie process? I know Aaron. Second.
Yeah, the singing part was mine.
Mike, when they get.
So I hate to tell you, I'm still agnostic. I'm like Amy, guys. You know what? God cured my terminal cancer, but like, I don't know.
I personally was converted immediately when I saw the cross on the blue-haired girl's neck. That's when they got me, because I was like, yeah, she's one of the good ones. I think that the Newsboys are at all angry, because they're like, well, technically we healed you, Amy. Like, that was I know God moved through us, but like,
we deserve a cut, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna bill us on your insurance.
Yeah.
So I did have some like fun facts and trivia that I took down, because I thought Melissa Joan Hart was in the first film, not the second. So about 2/3 of the way through the first film, I had like this unfortunate realization that no, I would have to wait.
No.
Did you guys know that she opened a candy shop that was shut down because of so many racial discrimination cases?
Melissa Joan Hart did?
Yes! She was also the Connecticut chair to Gary Johnson's presidential campaign in 2016. Yep.
Oh my God, I was making a joke about the libertarian thing.
Nope, it's real.
It's real. Well, that movie was out in theaters. She was probably helping Gary Johnson get all 18 of his votes. That's not the only overlap with 2016 though, because Mike Huckabee actually showed this film for free ahead of the Iowa caucus to gin up support.
That's wild.
And my final fun fact, Senator Fred Thompson plays a preacher in this. So he was a former senator from Tennessee.
Oh my god, he was probably big preacher man in the middle. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Holy shit.
And that was his last appearance. He died in 2016, 2015, but this was his last appearance.
Wow,
Well,
that's crazy.
At least he went out being a better actor than Pastor.
Oh.
Funny enough, he ran for the presidency in 2008, along with, wait for it, Mike Huckabee.
Oh, Mike. Wait, did Mike Huckabee did run for president in 2016, didn't he?
Yeah, but he was on like the secondary stage.
Well, yeah, definitely. God, it's been so long, boys.
Officially made it. Well, we have to give our rating system to consistency. I give it two crosses flipped right side and one cross flipped upside down.
I will give it as a Catholic, I will give it the 6th station of the cross. Veronica wipes the face of Jesus because I feel dirty after this movie.
So I'm going to give it 2 upside down cross tattoos on the back of my neck.
And as always, Michael wins the rating system.
Oh, man. Crushed it.
Look, it's not a good film, but it does have a singular plot. It's the excessive use of characters from the first film was very bad. It has way too much padding, but at the very least, this film does have like a goal that it achieves barely by the end.
Yeah, that it does. Well,
we gotta watch the third one.
I mean, we do. At this point, we're too invested in the fucking chronology.
I gotta know what happens, and I cannot watch this movie unironically.
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, yeah. That's how I got into Left Behind, unfortunately.
If I'm not doing a podcast for it, I'm unironically.
Amazing.
Yeah. All right. Well, to the 20 of you listening, we will get back to you when we've watched God's Not Dead 3. As always, don't watch these movies.